Hey guys, Crew of Bonoy back. I'm Rick.
I'm Maggie.
And we're back with Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. Last time on,
we had a tank that was taken over by the soul/brainwave something of one Takashi Kago.
one of the engineers on the project.
On his deathbed, apparently.
Yeah, had some sort of disease where he wasn't going to live long unless he got a prosthetic body or cyber modifications, but it was against his family's religion. So he was stuck in that dying body, which I guess we are, but in that early dying body until death.
It, yeah.
When his friend and co-worker
who suffered
put him into a tank.
Suffered from the same issue.
True.
But was allowed to flourish.
Well, wasn't impeded by religion.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, we're just getting into the show, but it seems like there's going to be at least in the early goings, a different, like not a monster of the week, but like a possible terrorist attack of the week sort of thing, where we get introduced to a problem, we resolve the problem, and we move on.
And the problem's out, the first thing is like, is it terrorist or is it just things going haywire? And that's what half the episode is trying to figure out.
But I do like this sort of storytelling show, especially in sci-fi, because it just allows you to examine so many different things that don't necessarily have to tie completely into one another. So, really liking it so far. Can't wait to see what it has in the store for us next.
Yep.
So let's go.
Only name the two guys that beat people up.
I'll get there.
No, we'll get there.
All right. So this episode, we had the first mention of ghosts, I think.
Yeah. Androids don't have ghosts.
Androids are not living beings.
Yeah.
But even this older unit, which I don't think they said exactly how old it was, but it seemed like decades, maybe.
Possibly.
Jerry unit.
I mean, but like, how old are like Nintendo systems?
I mean, like 1985 in America, but
yeah. So, like, when they just stopped manufacturing those
the NES,
the soup. Yeah.
I mean, it was well into the 90s.
Yeah, I thought so. So it was like, the Jerrys are probably like what, 20 years old tops, maybe.
I have no idea.
Just pretend. I'd say it's probably somewhere around there, because I mean, technology does move forward very quickly.
But so it's not confirmed one way or the other whether or not like this Jerry had a ghost, because its line at the end there was constructed. It seemed like before that, just repeating.
Both of them were, though.
It's true.
Like, were they?
Well, but I imagine
probably his fantasy.
Yeah, I imagine he feeds it all the types of movies that he wants, that like stars the girl that he would want to have, kind of. Well, not based off him necessarily, but just like he has a certain image of a girl in his mind.
Yeah.
And so like he feeds all that media into this Jerry bot, and then he recreates those movies with it. To an extent.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the one girl from Orange Host Club and her visual novels.
Yeah. But like, he said something as they were getting off the highway. It's like, I won't let it end like this. Something, what did he say?
Yeah, I won't let it end like that again.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Before that, they were already following the lines in the car.
True.
So, like, I don't know. It just seemed like...
Well, I'm not sure if he was talking about the movie there, because I'm not sure in the movie, like, did they split up? Was it like a Casablanca kind of ending? Or did he have a Jerry before? Or did he have a real girlfriend before? But if, say, this Jerry did develop a ghost, then why haven't more technologically advanced androids done it? Is it because there's been limits put in place, or is an android not allowed to exist long enough, a la Blade Runner, in order to like develop this sort of thing, and they're forced into retirement?
It does seem like there's like a time sort of issue with it.
I mean, there were other Jerrys out there going around, so at the very least, either that was illegal or maybe you have to wipe them every so often, or it's not enforced. I'm not sure. Or they thought like they're too old, we don't have to worry about this problem.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, even if you have an phone that's a couple generations older, it's still getting updates.
True. Well, even Tachikoma, the spider bot, like Major seemed surprised that it was asking for a souvenir.
Mm-hmm.
So is it growing and developing? Will we be sad at some point because it's wiped?
Maybe. Like, I mean, we have growing, learning programs and such now. Like,
yeah, I mean, there could be an AI singularity and sentience that's separate from humanity.
I mean, we have stuff basically trying to learn as much about us and why we do things and such as possible. So if Tajikoma actually wanted a souvenir, or if she did that because she had learned a method to make the Major smile, or to make the Major feel good, or something like that.
Isn't that what human kids do too?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't know if it was she was trying to get a certain reaction from the Major, or if she actually wanted the souvenir.
Isn't it more human to want to get the reaction? I feel like that's more of a human thing.
Well, I mean, programmed in our own self-image sort of thing.
Maybe.
But
because, like, you know, humans are social creatures, and like they want certain responses and value them. I mean, they want...
We brought up last episode about these, especially the blue bots, is that like maybe it is more comfortable to work with a machine that appears to be enjoying itself or having a good time, or...
I guess my big question is for Tachikoma, like, once she's back in headquarters or whatever, is she disappointed that she didn't get to go? Or is she just feigning everything for the people around her? Like, will she be disappointed if Major died on that mission and didn't get to tell her the stories? Would she be disappointed that she missed out on those stories? Or was that just
a method
for the
to,
purpose
like,
of
make Major smile at that point? Because, like, I mean, she could probably feel no, or whatever, like, to get this reaction out of someone, you do certain things, especially with someone she's probably been working with as long as the Major.
I like both ideas. I like the idea that it is conditioned to, it's programmed to not only be a weapon, but also like a morale bot. But I also like the idea that it is just acting on its own.
Well, I mean, this has been explored before. I don't know the specific author or books or anything like that, but I know I have read a story specifically where it was going through, it drew the relationship basically between like humans getting to the point where we are now, started out as purely emotional sort of feelings creatures, and then moved on to like higher thinking. And with machines, they start out with higher thinking and then develop the emotional stuff on backwards.
Sure.
So we're like, so they're developing backwards, as it were, just to get to the like kind of the same point we are at right here. So it's not a unknown sci-fi trope, I guess we should say.
Not trope, but like theory, maybe.
Yeah.
Concept,
tradition. But I mean, I did think it was kind of interesting. This, like, no matter like the sci-fi show, it's like you always have people that humanize. It's like any machines, and especially if you had like androids jumping off buildings, of course the news program would say it's suicide stuff, and they'd refer to it as suicides, even though like it's like if you saw a toaster thrown off a building, you just think, who is having a party up there, or something like that.
Well, yeah, like if a self-driving car drove off a bridge,
you'd be like,
you wouldn't think that the car is killing itself. You'd think it just malfunctioned or.
Mm-hmm. Now the person that owned the car, and if they'd like developed a relationship with it, they might like It's like, oh, that's the one that like Speedy jumped off of or whatever. Like they might refer to it as that. Sorry about that. I thought it was interesting what they talked about with like the modders.
Mm-hmm.
And they spoke of them with such like
disdain.
Yeah. And it's like game modders are the greatest.
Well,
but I could see, I mean, they especially this,
you know, if you're
Android
making a high, I mean, this I guess wasn't a high level, but if you're designing a Ferrari or something, and then like you find the car that you designed and someone's put a bunch of aftermarket parts on it, like a giant spoiler and everything, you could easily feel like they ruined.
And I also think that I think this model was being specifically targeted because probably didn't have as many of those like safeguards and such to control what sort of modifications you could do to it. So much like things nowadays.
We had a few interesting character moments. The impression I got from the conversation in the car.
Yeah, that was very...
So like Major was angry that people were buying these seemingly exclusively female robots.
Yeah.
I wonder what the percentage is of androids for like male androids versus female androids.
Have we seen any male ones? Like
versus neutral androids.
I don't know if they're identical, but the ones that were in the foreground where Maggie was at like Section 9 headquarters, like those could be androids.
Maybe.
More recent ones. But they're all freaking women.
But Major was like, it's sexist that they have them and they just have them like cook and clean and stay in the house. But like her mind never went to sexual uses.
I mean, treating them like... Basically, it's like, this is all I want a woman for, is doing these tasks and ownership, basically. Like, I just need a thing, and I think that fills the slot of woman in the universe.
But like that was hers, whereas the men, when they were talking about it, like they were talking around it, but their minds seemed
like,
to go immediately to...
they, fuck them and such.
So like I wonder what Kusaragi's sexuality is like. Like she has had prosthetics from a very young age, it seems like. Mm-hmm. So is she in a body that's capable of puberty? Did she go through that? Like what parts are still biological, I wonder?
Yeah, I don't know. She was able to turn like entirely invisible.
Well, but so is Bato and
I know,
others.
but like I don't know if that's like a on top of the skin or a skin deep.
It could be skin. It could just be almost like a drone or something, even that like
like drones that fly around and like shimmer the air.
That like
or whatever.
projected something, or it could be nanobots that are an outer layer that aren't part of them at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure what it is.
I don't know, but like, and that sure be hard to teach a kid. Like, it would make PE so much more important. It's like learning to drive an extremely powerful vehicle at the age of 6.
Well, it's like Ed with his arms and legs, right? Like you'd have to continue getting them adjusted as they grew. Mm-hmm.
Or getting more replaced. I don't know. It's like
twisted. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
I was going to transition to something else.
Just that like prosthetics and such and changes to appearance and even deeper is not that unusual. Like we do a lot of that stuff. I mean, there's people talking about it even now. It's like, what right does a woman have to want a real man when she goes to the club and everything physically attractive about her is all been faked and added in aftermarket, like bunches of makeup, the butt lifting stuff and fake boobs and all that sort of like skin tattoo sleeves or whatever. It's like, what right does she have to like want a real man or something like that? And they get people's opinions on that sort of stuff. It's like, okay, but then like draw that further. And how are people going to start thinking about like changes like cybernetically and with more prosthetics where if you want yourself to be a certain way, why not do it? And if so, it's like what are other people going to think about that? Are you lying to the world about yourself? Do people think that only the bit that came out of another human being is the you? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think
we're already hitting a lot of these like arguments.
Sure. Like, I think it can be important to be able to accept yourself and like love yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're just focused on changing it and you have the ability to like swap it at will, you might never learn that, if that makes sense.
As long as you're just I do agree that like I don't think that anytime like changing yourself to meet other people's expectations or perceptions of you or to try to please other people is ever a good idea. But
even yourself, like you see people who get addicted to plastic surgery, mm-hmm. and things like that.
Or people that work out way too much.
Or, yeah, do it in an unhealthy way.
Unhealthy, like too much of anything, you can definitely say is unhealthy. Mm-hmm. But that line of body modifications is constantly moving. Like a couple 100 years ago, it's like if what was normal for modifications for body stuff is in a whole different place nowadays. What's normal, what's generic, what's accepted. It's fine. Like piercings are a lot more accepted. Tattoos are a lot more accepted. Whereas before, like even during my parents' time, it's like if you had long hair.
In America.
Yeah, well, exactly. In America. But like if you were outside the standard of your gender or where you lived, what your race was or whatever, then it was not correct almost. And that's like a societal constraint put upon a person rather than what that person necessarily would want for themselves.
It's an interesting dichotomy because, like in Japanese culture, like uniformity is one of the tenets of behavior.
Yeah, and then Bato in that last episode was like, who wants to be like everybody else?
But in America, like it's advertised as not being like that. Like there's a lot of individuality and stuff like that. But like you're saying, there are still a lot of judgmentalness and taboos.
There's accepted and non-accepted. There's
it's like there's a range of acceptable behavior mm-hmm. in things, but it's not quite as free and open as it's advertised, I feel like. Oh. And a lot of it is like conservativeness and religion, I think, is largely a limiting factor.
But I mean, something like this is like they're attacking all these ideas and all these arguments basically. But that's the same sort of stuff we're going against now. They're raising the stakes kind of by making it about cybernetics and prosthetics that like replace major parts of your body to the point where you're like a superhuman. You can jump 30 feet up in the air and all sorts of things. Whereas nowadays we're doing things like plastic surgery, implants, hormones
adjustments,
or like anything to like just to make yourself appear like amazing makeup people that are just artists where they can just change themselves to look like a totally different person, like just changing themselves like that. It's stuff that we deal with now. So that's why I love sci-fi, because sci-fi attacks the common issues in morale.
Sure, it stretches them beyond their limits.
Well, to their logical, like if you make this argument now, imagine what this argument would look like in 100 years.
Sure.
It's like making the arguments we're making now against the people that were like 150 years ago. It's like they were thinking, you're crazy. It'd be like them watching this. The biggest part that I saw in this episode that I really wanted to talk about was at the very end when they were in the woods with the Jerry and that
the
hacker guy, when they were in the car and before in the apartment, the Jerry's eyes were like this pale blue, very soft blue.
And very dead as well.
Yeah. But very muted and like calm and, passive. But in the woods, when she was talking and disagreeing with him, her eyes were purple.
Sure.
And I just thought it was interesting, maybe growth or change, because purple's halfway between red of the majors and blue of the completely passive like machine android. So I don't know if that was just like symbolism or whatever, but I thought it was kind of neat.
No, it is neat. And like, assuming that she did change at the end there, like I think it's twofold. One, she stopped him from shooting or whatever to save his life that way, but also telling him that she wasn't in love with him anymore. Like, I'm not sure if that's true, but I think she realized that the best thing for him is to not be in love with outdated androids. Like, that's the healthiest thing for him. So I feel like she sacrificed in order to better his life ongoing.
What did she sacrifice?
I mean, she's probably going to get wiped, I assume.
Like, but if you say that she sacrifices, that means she had to have had something.
Which I think she did at the end. Like, I think she did love him, but she knew that they couldn't have that.
That means we're assuming that androids all, like, she had a ghost then.
I mean, I don't know for sure.
She'd gone down that
her
backwards
action
path.
seems to indicate, at the very least, that she had those feelings.
I agree. I'm just saying, it's like, if you're saying she sacrificed, then she had to have had something to sacrifice. Because if she's just a machine, like, protect the owner or whatever like that.
Well, but a machine can still value its existence. Like the Terminator, it sacrificed itself, but like it now knows why you cry, but it cannot cry.
Yeah. If it sets its own priorities. But if someone else sets those priorities, then it's less of its own sacrifice.
Sure. Another interesting thing I thought about during this is, so obviously he's warped and crazy, and his idea was, in order for me to make my Pinocchio real girl, I have to take out all the other ones in order to make this one unique, because people are unique. But that made me think, like, what if she had been a twin or like a triplet, but a human, like, do guys or girls feel jealous seeing an identical twin, like, being with another man or woman?
It's like, they found someone. How come I don't have someone? I look just like them. I don't know.
I just was thinking about that.
I don't look like my siblings.
Curious. Like, they're not the same person. Mm-mm. And I don't think you would feel that they're the same person. But especially him and his warped mind. I wonder if he would have just gone and killed, like, the twin and the triplet.
I mean, especially with twins and triplets, I feel like the more you get to know them all, the more of the differences you'd see. And whereas with the androids, maybe it was more of a reminder that the more you got to know them, the more identical they'd be.
That's probably true.
Unless they'd been modded. But maybe, like, just the existence of those mods means, like, any differences that you would think you saw would just be added later, aftermarket.
Maybe. All right, that's all that I had, other than Bato has a pure love of machines. So we got a little bit of his character.
Yeah, he was talking down about that guy who was a mech lover or something like that. Like, you can profess to be one thing and then, like, look down on it in the next section.
Well, I think he's separating machines from androids, maybe.
So there's some sort of
So, like, no CPU involved, It's like for pinball machines. Like, I much prefer pinball machines that have mechanical parts in them rather than just a virtual machine on Windows or something.
Yeah, you can control the tilt of the table.
I mean, you could do that virtually too, but it's not the same.
There's more feedback.
Sure.
So maybe with Bato, it's more of he likes machines that he can give human like personality characteristics to, or just like that he loves them for being machines, whereas androids, people love them more for looking like humans.
I think he is a fan of hardware, not software.
I mean, that sounds like he would love this machine. It doesn't sound like it had much software. It was mostly just the hardware.
Still had enough, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode as well.
We got a little bit more talking between the people about their thoughts and perceptions.
Yeah, and their likes and dislikes. Stuff like that. So, good stuff. On to the next.
Yes.
We're just getting started, but you can race ahead and see the next 4 reactions right now over at patreon.com/blindwave, or you can just subscribe so that you can check this out when it comes next week, as well as all the other reactions and videos that we're putting out. Also, check out twitch.tv/blindwave, where we play video games, have podcasts, and more.